Welcome to Midwest Mountaineering Outdoor Adventures Expo, which tonight is my bedroom here in Telluride, Colorado. My name's Jordan Harvey. I'm going to be presenting primarily about Patagonia, southern Chile, Argentina, but we'll talk about the countries as a whole as well. Yeah, I've been doing the expo or involved with the expo. Don and I were just talking for going on 11 years or so. My wife and I founded Nomad Adventures down in Patagonia. That was our home for quite a while after we got married. And I originally went to Chile as a high school student, and the love affair just sort of went from there. Today, and we founded our company back in 2009. So who and what is Nomad Adventures? Well, we're considered a world-leading provider of custom private trips to South America. Some folks, will look at us and say that's a travel agency that does a very defined area of the world. Others will look at it and call it a trip operator. The industry would call us an outbound trip operator. We call ourselves a regional specialist because as much as some of our diehard long-term clients want us to do other areas, this is the area we're passionate about. These are the areas we know and we feel we can give a lot of value to the travel planning and execution process. We have Minneapolis roots. Like I say, I moved with my kids here to Telluride, Colorado, to pursue a long-term dream of continuing to live in the mountains, but here in the United States now with kids. We do have an office in South Minneapolis. It is, of course, closed temporarily, and we're all remote. We've got folks on either coast, and then a fair amount of folks in Minnesota. Our team has gotten a little smaller here in the last year, but yeah, Peru, Machu Picchu, Ecuador, Galapagos, Chile, Patagonia, Argentina. That's kind of our backbone. We do a fair bit in Bolivia, Colombia, Brazil as well. Well, what do? We collaborate with travelers, couples, families, groups, and we create custom and private trips. Our process to do so is what we call a discovery, which oftentimes is over the phone. Sometimes it is in the office, back in the day anyways. We call it a discovery because we want to get to know you. We want to get to know your preferences, your style. Then we move to a skeleton, onward to a proposal, and then adventure. Some hallmarks of our trip: very regionally specialized. We do adventure. That's our backbone. That's my passion. But, we work with a variety of people, and adventure is different things to different people, first and foremost. We do a fair amount of leisure, culture, luxury. A lot of all local guides is really what we use, preferably small hand-picked accommodations. And one of our mottos is travelers, not tourists. So not to bore you anymore, what we want to do is for those who are interested at all in Chile or Argentina, or are simply just, dreaming and like to educate, we'll try to give you some background on the countries themselves, the various regions of interest, and then narrow down into Patagonia. So Chile, when I was a high school kid wanting to have an experience and live abroad, how I ended up in Chile was just looking at the map and being extremely naive and seeing this long sliver. I don't know if you all can see my cursor, but this is a long sliver of land, and this is all coast, obviously, and the Andes makes up the eastern border with Argentina. So to me, that spelled magic, and sure, lo and behold, it was pretty magical to me. The Atacama Desert is starting from north to south. The Atacama, I call it sort of the American Southwest meets Mars. Red rocks, petroglyphs, geysers. It's a super volcano like Yellowstone, so a lot of hurgly-gurglies and things going on under the earth, surreal landscapes, really neat cultures, and it's an extension of the Bolivian steppes. So very different than that much more European influenced culture to the south and the central regions. And then as you move even further south to Patagonia, that's very German, Swiss, Yugoslavian. Those are big communities that shape the land there. Santiago is, northern central part of the country. It's a burgeoning metropolis, very large city, has a lot to offer. It's kind of overlooked when compared to, say, Buenos Aires or Cartagena or Rio. It's got a lot to offer. And right to the west, an hour and change drive, slightly north and west, is Viña del Mar and Valparaiso. For us, Valparaiso holds a bit more appeal to our type of traveler. It's a really bohemian, neat city. I hearken it to a San Francisco in terms of a Chilean version. And then you move a little further south, you've got a lot of great wine and wine regions, great Mediterranean climate. And then moving down into the northern Patagonia, we're going to talk about Puerto Varas, the Cochamo Valley. Some of these areas here before the land gets a lot more broken up. Chiloé Island is an archipelago, not too far off the coast of Puerto Varas. Really fascinating, mythical place where culture and maritime traditions and animist faith really bring things alive. And then further down, we'll talk a lot more about Torres del Paine. Everything in between and beyond is really Patagonia, which is both Chile and Argentina. Looking at Argentina, I'll try to speed it up to get to some more attractive photos quickly, but I love maps. I know a lot of you out there also love maps if you're outdoor adventurers. Looking at Argentina, some of your highlights, quote unquote, Iguazu Falls in the jungle. Lesser known, but very much a highlight to me, is the Northwest, the Salta province. You've got incredible road trips. So that's going to be just east of Atacama. So, some of those similar components. Buenos Aires, of course, is your in and you're out. Awesome city. Palermo, Recoleta, incredible places to stay. West, Mendoza, which is a pretty parallel to Santiago. Then Bariloche, Mendoza, obviously wine, but great mountains. Aconcagua, the largest peak out of the Himalayas, is there. Then moving down, we start calling it Patagonia here at Bariloche. This would be the contemporary of Puerto Varas in the Lakes District on the Chilean side. You've got Bariloche at the same latitude. They call it the Switzerland of South America. Beautiful, beautiful place. Lots of multi-activity, multi-sport opportunities. Then southern Patagonia, some of the highlights are El Chaltén, hiking mecca of Argentine Patagonia. Reminds me of somewhat of Telluride, where I live, a real small town that has a historical background in industry, and now it's really a mountain outpost. Moving further south, your access point to southern Patagonia is actually El Calafate, which is a great jumping off point for the Perito Moreno Glacier, as well as a number of other glaciers. Really, the Argentine side has the bigger, slightly more visually impressive glaciers. And then down to Tierra del Fuego, where Ushuaia is a port city that'll access Antarctica, gives you access to Tierra del Fuego National Park, and quite a bit of wildlife as well. All right, so northern Patagonia, Chile. I'm gonna let some of the images speak for themselves because I tend to ramble, as you've probably already seen, and try to keep it moving so we stay on time. This is focused here now. You can see, if you see my cursor, that is, I believe you do. Here's northern Patagonia. Some of the highlights, again, Chiloé, Puerto Varas, Lago Llanquihue. The most northern fjord in all of Chile is the Reloncaví. There's some good kayaking opportunities there. This is a great place to raft as well on the Petrué. And the Valle de Cochamo is for those people who really like to trek and go to places that the access is very challenging, has great rock climbing as well. Cochamo should be on your list. Again, a little more detail here, Puerto Varas and Lago Llanquihue. That's where I've lived quite a lot of time there. It's just a very genial town on a beautiful lake on a clear day from Puerto Varas, you can see 4 volcanoes. very different ones. The Osorno volcano being the iconic sort of Mount Fuji of Chile. Here you see a picture of an old wooden church that's on Chiloé. Chiloé, the Jesuits showed up and they built all these churches, but these boat builders did some incredible woodwork. It's really hard to put Chiloé in a nutshell, but I encourage people who are into culture and lesser explored places also to consider Chiloé if they're going to Chile. And the Cochimo Valley I talked a little bit about, and that's a great place to see the gaucho culture because it's a historic trail that connects seafood and beef going back over the mountains with horses. So the gauchos and that tradition there is pretty evident still. Here's a shot of Chiloé. Many of the houses, traditionally were on stilts, and they've still preserved a number of them. Nomad was partly born right here in this apartment, this tiny apartment. This is a great place. A couple of our friends have started little hostels and small boutique hotels here. Like I say, colorful place, really colorful countryside. These are some of the churches and the woodwork. It's really, known because they didn't use nails in most of these churches. So a variety of different wood joints and techniques were used to build these, and they still stand today, which is particularly impressive. Here's the Osorno volcano. Here's just showing some of these farmsteads, these very German feeling farmsteads. That actually is my father-in-law, and that's the farm where I've also spent a lot of time. Kind of, a little bit of central Wisconsin, Minnesota feeling, with the German farms and things. Kayaking on the Relon Cavi is really pretty, and I like it because it's very interactive too. There's little just homesteads of people that are doing mussel farming and beekeeping and, just small time farming. So you can paddle along and kind of engage with the countryside and its people. Rafting is also pretty primo on the Petraway. Good, clean fun. Class 3 that feels like class 5 because it's big rollers, but no consequence. This is a family here. This was a Christmas trip we did with a 3-generation family. That was a lot of fun. They were up for everything. Like I say, scenery, there's nothing like being on a raft and then coming to a float section that just blows your mind. Here's the Cochimo Valley, snow-capped peaks, big granite peaks. They hearken it to a half dome and some of the climbing caliber. Natural water slide. You can zoom down that sucker, although the water's a bit cold. There's Dan. He's our financial controller in Cochimo. Some of the perks of the job, we get to travel quite a lot. Pucón is an area, if you're reading about the Chilean Lakes District and considering a trip, Pucón is going to figure pretty prominently in the guidebooks and information. And it's a nice town, and there's some great lodges around Pucón, but the town itself has gotten more and more busy, as Puerto Varas has. These are beautiful, beautiful places. So we tend not to do quite as much in Pucón, but similar. And that's Lisa and Cole. That's our media manager, I think we call it, and her husband, staying at Vita Vita, which is a pretty special lodge in the area where you can fly fish, you can bike, you can horseback ride, you can do it all. And they just do a really nice job. They make all their own cheeses and all their own food. And it's a swanky place, but a really solid choice for people looking for really top-end accommodations with a lot of activities. Moving south, Torres del Paine, the crown jewel of Patagonia, if you will. Much for the Paine Massif, the multicolored mountains, and the blues that just never stop, the shades of blue in the waters and the sky. And Puerto Natales is, these are kind of actually hard to follow now that I look at it. But the bottom line is, if you're going to go to southern Patagonia, you'll probably fly into Punta Arenas, which is a 4 to 5 hour drive. working back north actually to get into Torres del Paine, and Puerto Natales is at the halfway point. There's also now flights to Natales. They're just not that frequent. It'll be interesting to see how quick they get ramped up in terms of the demand and things coming out of, well, I won't even say the word, coming out of this. Strait of Magellan is great. That's a historic waterway, tons of history of how our world was settled and different things. It's just a neat place to be. And from Punta Arenas, you're right on the Strait of Magellan. And then Tierra del Fuego is just across the channel. Yeah, Torres, what's so amazing about Torres? Well, I've put myself in some beautiful mountain situations in life, and I'm hard pressed to be more inspired in Torres del Paine. Refugios is, so really not huts in English, that wouldn't work well, but you can hike the W is a famous route, 4 or 5 days. I hope my internet's coming through. Said I had a unstable connection, but anyways, let me know, Adon, if it's not working.
All right to me.
Okay, good. Thank you for the interaction too. It's quite weird to stare at
I'm here with you.
And not know what's going on or who's out there. So a little levity for you all. We have pretty good internet here, but it is Southwest Colorado, the middle of nowhere. So, but yeah, amazing trails. The W is a well-known route, 4 or 5 days. The circuit also well-known. 8 to 12 can be more, could be less if you ran it. Or the O, it's oftentimes referred to. Incredible routes, and then you've got the ability. The road structure and infrastructure is pretty good, so you can get around the park more by vehicle. You can do a multi-day through hike, like I said, and you can also stay in these world-class lodges that are they kind of invented in Chile the adventure lodge concept. Think safari, but it's not all about animals. It's all about hiking, some biking, some wildlife, and getting out there. So that's part of what the big deal is, if you will. Here's just some pictures of Natales, the halfway point for most, if you're flying into Punta Arenas. If you're going to be doing, an independently supported multi-day trek, this is they've got some good gear stores. They've got a decent size grocery store and things. Here you can really supply up. A lot of the Expo people are very independent and adventure focused. So if that's what you're looking to say, hike the W or something like that, a big piece of advice is don't plan to get to Puerto Natales and then get into the park and start hiking the same day or anything like that. You got to be able to buy your bus ticket. You got to be able to, supply. And so at least one night to get properly set up so your timetable's not altered from what you had in mind. Horseback riding. I mean, my wife is a big horseback rider, grew up loving to ride, and I did not, needless to say, but I learned to love riding, hanging out with gauchos and in Patagonia. It's in the blood, it's in the culture, it's in the landscape. It's just part of it. So, if you're not one of the people absolutely terrified of horses, which I understand if that's the case, I do suggest getting on a horse in Patagonia. The lamb asado is, Cordero Patagonica is like, there's nothing like it. Definitely want to have yourself a nice lamb barbecue while you're there. Here's the Salto Chico, bit of a misnomer, I'd say. It's a pretty substantial waterfall. Some of the classic shots. Here you see a fire bush. We'll talk more about seasonality. I definitely have a section in here that I'll make sure we keep time for, to talk about weather and the time to go and the nuance between them. But in the fall, those fire bushes just go off. Kayaking is possible in Torres del Paine. Frankly, it's a little bit more accessible from a cost standpoint to do so in Perito Moreno in Argentina, but it is possible. Glacier hiking, doing some ice hiking is pretty special, pretty neat. Can be done on the Argentine side as well as the Chilean side. This is the Gray Glacier. This is where you have a glacial wall up against a waterway on the Chilean side. This is what you got. It's really incredible, amazing. If you're going to be seeing Perito Moreno in Argentina, then if you have a few days in Torres del Paine, maybe this won't fall as high on your list because of the French Valley and the base of the towers and a lot of these different hikes. It's really neat and impressive. Relative to Perito Moreno, this is about 100 feet high in most places. Perito gets up to 350 and does have more active calving. So that's why if you're not seeing Perito, this will blow your mind. If you're seeing Perito, then maybe not figure as formative in your itinerary. Here's some spring wildflower bloom, late October, mid-October, can slide into early November is when you're going to see that. Really special. Biking, you can do some biking in Torres del Paine. We've seen more and more requests for it. To me, it's not the most natural fit in that it's a windy place, quite often. And I just, as a mountain biker, I don't think of Torres del Paine for biking, but you can have a nice pleasure cruise in and around the park. This is another family. We did some really cool stuff for the kids for. Here's the base of the towers is well known because these granite spires just sort of come up from nowhere, and there's a hanging glacial lake. It's quite an epic spot. Here's just showing some Monacos grazing. Showing you some of the lodging options. Like I say, the adventure lodges are nice for folks who want really, really good accommodations, really good food, especially by night, but by day, they still want flexible adventures from casual sightseeing and looking for the pumas to hiking the base of the towers in the French Valley and beyond, which are, rigorous full day hikes. Explora is really well located. It's got that iconic shot. There's no other lodge like it quite as in the park and sitting within the mountains is kind of its big claim to fame. This was a shot. I'm not a photographer by any means, but I'm proud to say I took this one. Sunrise one morning a couple trips ago. It was a pretty special sunrise. Tierra Patagonia is really awesome. Similar level to Explora. Really sort of fun vibe, a little bit more laid back feeling, a little bit more young feeling, I guess, relative to Explora. More international crowd. They do a good job. So this is the backside. When you drive up to Tierra, you can't even see it. Like, it's hidden architecturally in the land, and that was what they really wanted. So this is from the back. It's got great views to Lago Sarmiento and some of the some good peaks. The towers you can only see kind of peeking back. Owasi is the most luxurious, really good for people who love food. It's the Relais Chateau, so 5-star food experience. And they do, every villa you have your own guide and your own vehicle. So that, if you're looking for that flexibility as opposed to a lot of choice in excursion, but generally with a small group at the other lodges, Owasi would be something to consider. Photographers, serious photographers, Owasi can be a great choice because, they want to do things at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. and all, depending on sunrise and sunset, which can be extremely long days here in the summer season of January and February. Patagonia Camp. I love Pat Camp. A lot of folks that we see at the Expo are a good fit for Patagonia camp. It's glamping. It's close to the land. You can feel the wind whip on those nights when it kicks up. You're right by the lake. There's a lot of independent options, stand-up paddle boards, kayaks. They'll set you up with a fly fishing rig, and you can just poke around, as well as all these different excursions throughout the park. And it's owned by a really neat family. They own some vineyards up north too, so they have really good wine. And I swear the great grandmother's recipe book is what they really use with some fusion and some different things. And the food is just tremendous. It reminds me of the old nana that was with the family that I've continued to spend a lot of time with. So very, very nice. Great stargazing. The deluxe ones have little jacuzzis on your private decks, so that's pretty sweet to stare at those mountains with that. Just showing, there's multiple species of camelids. You're going to see tons of guanacos. In terms of wildlife, pumas are prevalent. It's not uncommon to see pumas at all, which is really, really neat. And then you've got guanacos, nyandus, the giant rheas, ostrich-looking characters. A lot of bird life. And then, of course, on the Strait of Magellan and in Punta Arenas, you can go walk amongst penguins. You can whales early in the season, late October, November, early December. You lose it for later in the season. Penguins also are strongest. They're hatching in November, so November and December is great. Moving on to Argentina, I better keep moving. Bariloche, awesome, great place to be in a town, yet have tons of adventure at your fingertips. The Andes Lakes Crossing is pretty cool. It's a series of buses and boats that take you through the Andes Mountains and a remote national park border crossing. And that's a way to connect the countries via the Lakes District, which you can also do in southern Patagonia, connecting Calafate to Torres del Paine or vice versa. We love that. I mean, doing a trip that's not, an out and back, if you will, like a hike, a through or loop, making a horseshoe, starting Buenos Aires, ending Santiago, or vice versa is really, really cool. Here's Bariloche, view of the historic Yao Yao Hotel. Here's one of my favorite guys on the planet, our lead guide in Bariloche, Fede, with Krista, a longtime teammate of Nomad, somebody who was going to be giving this presentation, but I had to step in. So you've got just lakes and mountains galore, good rafting, good biking. This is our friend's brewery restaurant, Gilbert. Make great beer, just in the really informal Argentine way, mad scientist types. Kayaking, great place to kayak, great picnics, good wine on a picnic. And yeah, it's just, that's also Rodrigo. He's another guide of ours, right up there with Fede. A little bit more on the operations side, because his English isn't quite that caliber, but yeah, a lot of fun to be had with these guys. That's, like I say, we take our food pretty seriously, especially in Argentina. So picnic is kind of an understatement. Water, it's all about water, mountain, and pampa in Bariloche. You can see all three landscapes within 45 minutes of town. And if kayaking's not your speed, we have some contracts with some really great small boats, private boats, and you can do some boating to get to some of these remote areas of the lake, and also like picnic once again. Love the blues. I just can never get enough of the blues. No matter how cold that water is, I'm jumping in every time. The Xiao Xiao hike, couple hours at a slow, casual pace. That's the beauty. There's great easy hikes, and then there's Cerro Catedral and beyond, where you can really get into it. Southern Patagonia, Argentina, cross the mountains from Chile and Torres del Paine. Maybe not quite as well known these days with Torres del Paine's fame, but really a ton to offer. And as Chalten is, like I say, a town where the trailheads start right from town. It's not like Torres del Paine. It's there's less services involved. There's less remoteness involved, yet you can do these epic day hikes. You can do them on your own. You can do them with a guide, but you stay in a regular hotel. So it can be much more affordable to focus in Argentine Patagonia in terms of the south, rather than, say, Torres del Paine, unless you're going to do more of a self-supported multi-day hike. A lot of boating to the big boy glaciers. Perito Moreno, as I've said, is pretty amazing. Hiking on it, yeah, you can do a couple different versions depending on your age and your level of how much you want to get into it. And I don't discriminate with age, they just have an insurance thing. So there's a couple different levels that you can be involved in. Having a whiskey or something of the sort on the glacier is great. Krista doesn't drink, so that's presumably water. If it was me, it would most definitely be whiskey. I hope someone's chuckling in there if you're out there in the ethers. All right. More gauchos. I mean, the gaucho tradition in Argentina is, it's as strong as it gets. It's a lot of fun. Those last few shots, they were from Estancia in Ibepo, like a really special place, way out there. Great place to access Perito Moreno from the back door. Right, a couple of different excursions and ways on small group boats that you can do it from Nibepoaike. It's very basic in terms of accommodations, but in my opinion, hits all the spots for what a lot of us need. Great horses, great working. You can multi-day horseback trips from here. They're running sheep. They're running a heck of a lot of sheep. This is Chalten, like it says. This is a couple hours driving north from Calafate, the other side of the Torres del Paine Mountains. This is where Patagonia's logo comes from Fitz Roy. As you see this thing here, this is Mount Fitz Roy here, and you've got Cerro Torre. It's really beautiful. Day hikes more. You can do some good camping too. There's a great 2-day, 1-night option that we do a ton of. You can stretch it and do a few nights to get more of that multi-day experience like you would have in Torres. And you're not going to see as many people on that outside of the Fitz Roy and Cerro Torre hike. What am I doing on time here? I started at 5:30. All right, we got about a half hour. Zoom through some shots. Most of these photos, frankly, are from clients. I don't love the word clients. They mostly become pretty good friends over the process, and seeing them go and come back. And we've had a lot of photographers, as we're so specialized, and so we get some great shots. That being one of them. There's one lodge option in terms of Chalten that's a little bit more akin to the level of in Torres del Paine. It's a hidden gem though. Nobody knows about it. Aguas Arriba. It's only 5 rooms and you can only access it by hike or by boat. It's about an hour and a half on a dirt road outside of Chalten. So you can do those day hikes and do Chalten. And then if you want to pamper yourself a little bit while also being active but staying in, a 5-room owner operated, really caring, wonderful people who own it, and this is their passion, their dream, and they built it. They were involved in building. Really special. Ivor and Pato. Ushuaia, Ushuaia is a port town, much like Punta Arenas. Not always the most photogenic and on some levels, but it's got great access to some stuff. And namely, you're going to go there if you're going to Antarctica, or there's a neat cruise option with Cruceros Australis, a 3-night, 4-day option that goes from Ushuaia over to Punta Arenas. Can be a neat way to do that, and vice versa. Penguins. They put some sample itineraries in here. Everything we do is private and custom, but people from a planning standpoint, we like to put out ideas. They're all on our website. This one, Argentina and Chile adventure, shows you the concept of the horseshoe. Buenos Aires, seeing a bit of the city. Moving on to Calafates, seeing Perito Moreno, being involved in it, maybe trekking on it, maybe kayaking next to it, whatever your speed is. And then crossing through the Andes Mountains. I will say we were kind of the pioneer of that, and I'm very proud of that. We won the Travel and Leisure Dream Trip in 2013, I want to say, for that concept. And now everybody's, there's transfer companies doing it. The lodges are all including the option to do it, which is great. But we like to, we're proud of that. Then over to Torres del Paine, you don't want less than 4 nights in Torres del Paine. Day 1 and day 5 are travel. No matter which way you skin it, even if you're flying into Puerto Natales on the Chilean side and you get to cut that drive in half, those flights don't get in until the afternoon. You've got airport rigmarole. So it's remote. There's no way to get there in less than 2/3 of a day and the out. So you want a few full days in the park, in my opinion. And then from there up to Santiago, you can stay in Santiago and see the city. Head over to Valparaiso and see that San Francisco of Chile, if you will. You can head down a couple hours, stay a couple nights in a winery property. Those can be really neat ways to end after some extremely active time in Patagonia. So it's really a concept, if you will. And there's a million different ways to do it, which is why we do discoveries and skeletons and proposals. So some of the nitty gritty, this is a bit surreal in today, sitting here today, but so prepping, are there any visa requirements or anything you need to do? Well, under normal circumstances, there is not. There used to be fees for both upon arrival to get, temporary visas. They're both gone. That's great. It gets rid of what was a pretty hefty cost if you were doing both countries. Right now, Chile just announced technically their borders open to international travelers November 23rd. It's really December 7th. For folks on this presentation, we're coming from a country where there's widespread community transmission. So for us, there would be a quarantine until the 7th of December. After the 7th of December, you want to start thinking about going to Chile. Well, you can go with no mandatory quarantine. You can enter without visa. You do need a PCR negative test within 72 hours, just like pretty much almost anywhere letting folks in. Argentina's closed. They keep kicking the can on the date when they're going to open. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I anticipate they'll open for the holidays, but there's going to be a lot of caveats. I mean, truthfully, we're postponing and postponing and postponing, folks, because most people are not looking to go even as things open up. Though there are some who are, and that's just great, and we're there to support them. And our operations team's been working their butts off, and they're ready. Immunizations and shots, there's nothing special. You got to be current. That's it. Current in your common vaccinations, your HEPs and stuff like that. Typhoid's a good idea. The clinic will recommend rabies, and I think that's a racket. And there's a couple other things, but best way to get money, I'll kind of skim through this because I don't think anybody is flying to Chile next week or Argentina, unfortunately. So, but we've got all this information. I think most of it's downloadable off our website, whether you're, a client of ours or just somebody looking for good references. So I'm gonna kind of keep going. I'll try to save some time for questions. I know there's this chat feature and you can shoot questions over. Happy to run things over, and I'll save a little time for that. Water, you're better off not to drink it. It's not like Peru where you're probably definitely gonna not do so well if you drink all the water from the tap, but it does have a higher mineral content, so it can agitate. Weather and when to go. This is probably something worth spending some time on, for you folks who are thinking about going. Maybe it's not in the near term, but our season in Patagonia, Chile, and Argentina is mostly October through April. October, November, early December, I'd call those spring. Then moving forward, December, January, February, summer. March and April is really more the fall. We love the shoulder seasons. There's a lot to be said for them. If you're early or late in shoulder season, you're looking at Torres del Paine, for example, where the cost can add up. There can be some deals to be had there. There's less people in the park generally, less people in traveling overall. Not to mention, anybody going to Patagonia, they're usually going to spend some time in other regions. Those central regions of Chile and Argentina are hot in the summer. For a Minnesota boy, real hot. And so shoulders also, it's like perfect in shoulder season. Spring bloom, I mentioned, snow-capped peaks in the spring. Depending if you go real early, you can still get, muddier, wetter trails. But honestly, I've been snowed on on Christmas Day in Torres del Paine hiking, and then the next day been in shorts. The sun is strong. The altitude's not significant, but it's just a real strong sun. There's some weather charts and precipitation and thing, but that's more or less the long and short of it. Fall, I love muted colors overall, natural tones, but the firebush and some of these other things, it's not as much fall color as Minnesota. I haven't seen that many places in the world that are, but those natural muted tones and the undergrowth and the ground cover just being really colorful is neat. Wildlife can be pretty active in the fall too, as well as spring. You can't go wrong with summer, of course. One thing I should mention in terms of seasonality too, wind. It can be windy in Patagonia. You're a little less likely to get that in shoulder seasons than in summer when there's more high pressure systems. I think basically when it comes to packing, if you're going to Patagonia and you're going to Chile or Argentina, layers, just like any, mountain type of experience, easily layerable is the name of the day. That's running through Chile and Argentina a bit. There's a few more photos actually normally we have a guest presenter, a past traveler join us at the Expo just to show some of their photos and discuss their experience traveling. And I noticed there's some really good photos from the last person who did that. So I'll show a few of those because I think we have a little bit more time. Normally we give away these little credit things for folks if they end up wanting to travel with us and booking our services. You can get a travel credit. In this case, if you just want to email travel@nomadadventures.com, we can do so in the next few days, and then we'll send you one of those and you can redeem it. A couple more photos. These guys were great, and they took some good photos. I'll run through it pretty quick because I think we want to be done here in 1 minute for any questions y'all might have. That's the Recoleta Cemetery, empanadas, seeing Estancia Cristina is a really cool estancia outside of Calafate. If you have the time and you want to stay at an estancia that's in the middle of nowhere, that's well done, Estancia Cristina is the ticket. There's some logistical challenges on the front and back end that make it a longer section than most people spend in Calafate, but worth doing. They have a day trip where you 4-wheel drive up above the Fossil Canyon. And then if you're a hiker, you can actually hike down the entire Fossil Canyon. It's about a 5-6 hour hike. Really neat, just filled with fossils. And look at these colors you're seeing here. This is the top before you descend into Fossil Canyon. Or if you're not a big hiker, you can do it as a 4x4 trip. It's the Fossil Canyon hike in this area. All the reds really are unique. They're kind of an anomaly. There's some of just wildlife. Perito Moreno, that's obviously a recent calve you see there. Every day, basically November to April, you're gonna see multiple calving incidents, and some of them huge, which is pretty cool. You can, like I say, get out in a small group on the glacier and just boat to the face. 350 feet at its highest. This is some of their shots from Torres. Yeah, just run through these pretty quick. Nice looking owl there. That is Cerro Guido and a cool estancia. Looks like they saw quite a bit of wildlife. Andean fox is great. There's the Nyandu. This is on Isla Magdalena from Punta Arenas. If you stay in Punta Arenas for pre or post, Torres del Paine, it's really neat to go walk amongst these penguins. Looks like they went to Valparaiso. The whole town, it's a very, like I say, funky bohemian town, university, the arts community, the music community, really prevalent. So the whole thing's just painted. It's really cool. Looks like they probably did one of our street art tours, which is really cool. It's a way of seeing Valparaiso, but through the lens of the street art. And it's always neat to put a spin on seeing a city, whether it's the food or the art or, it's pretty neat. Completos is kind of a traditional, Santiago, big metropolis. So there we go. Let me see if I can figure out, if you guys have any questions, I think please submit them via chat. And I should be able to, no, I've been disconnected.
I can relay the questions to you, Jordan. I got a couple here that popped up.
Okay, great.
All right. First one that's come in. If you only have time to go to one, do you think Chile or Argentina Patagonia is better?
I mean, to really answer that, I'd have to drill down a little bit further. Like I say, Argentina is more budget friendly, straight up. And you can get both a hiking and mountain experience with glaciers, but you need to do Calafate and Chaltén to do that. Calafate doesn't have the epic hikes and mountainscapes that you're going for. So, combining those two, really either way, though, you're going to need 5 nights, to do that. Whereas on the Chilean side, I mean, you can keep it very straightforward. And I'm speaking about southern Patagonia, and that may be presumptuous, but if this questioner wants to focus more on the north, but if you have a handful of days, Torres del Paine on the Chilean side, you can fly down same day, go up into a lodge or however you're going to play it, and generally 4 nights, 5 days gets the job done. So I guess you can do it a little quicker. You're going to spend more money, because on the Argentine side, to do southern Patagonia right, if you're not combining them, you've got to do a couple nights Calafate to have at least a full day in Perito Moreno. And then if you're going to Chaltén, you're going so that you can do at least 2 days of hiking. So that would probably require about 5 days. So either way, and you fly overnight to Santiago, you land in the morning. You usually don't want to fly same day regional. You're exhausted. You have to buffer it a bunch in terms of layovers to be safe coming off an international before a regional. So, you don't see Patagonia door to door because of the overnight down, buffering, overnight back. You really don't see door to door trips less than 8 days or so. And you could do that comparably, seeing Buenos Aires as your buffer and then southern Pat Arge versus Chile. The Lakes District doesn't require, any long drives also. So you could do a shorter trip. But it's a long way to fly, and they're not inexpensive flights. So, I mean, in terms of what we see, we just don't see folks going for less than 8 days door to door.
Jordan,
when you have 2 weeks, you can connect them.
Yeah. I spent some time there years ago, and this is just my perception, but it felt like in southern Argentina, if you were going to stick to just southern Argentina, Patagonia, there seems to be a bit more travel. Ruta 40, the famous 40 route, there's a bit more space between places. So whereas in Chile, you can it's all compacted and a bit more, you can kind of see everything kind of in one spot, maybe. I mean, especially Torres del Paine, you're going to get the mountains, you're going to get the water, this and that. Whereas like El Chaltén to El Calafate is several hours, right?
Well, you're dating yourself, like when you and I were talking.
Things have changed. Good. Maybe
we paved that sucker, and it's 2 hours easy.
Oh, wow.
To Chaltén. I know. It was probably 3 trips ago, 3 seasons ago. that I went for the first. It hasn't been paved long, and it
Okay.
is game changing.
Yeah, it was a
So
bumpy road last time I was there.
I agree with you in concept, and from a, if you're taking the buses and doing a lot of Ruta 40, for sure. If you're looking at a short time frame type of logistically tighter trip, I would maybe argue with that, because you fly into Calafate, and then the airport from Calafate to get to Calafate is short. Perito Moreno is an hour away, and now you're right based on your experience. That was 4 hours. Now it's only 2 hours up and then 2 hours back to do, to do Chalten and Calafate combined. And in Torres del Paine, you're pretty much set on the 4 to 5 hour timeline in and out, but it's just one drive. Like I say, maybe you can get flights to Natales. They just don't end up. And you do miss something if you fly to Natales. Like I say, Punta Arenas is on the Strait of Magellan. I'm getting away from the question a little bit, so you can do. I would say overall, to be broad, you can do either Southern Patagonia in comparable times, and you'll probably have a minimum cumulative drive time of 8 hours on the Chilean side and 6 on the Argentine side. Used to be different.
Yeah. Another question that came up, is it a day trip to the wine region from Santiago, or are there overnight accommodations? It's kind of a two-part question. And what different room options does Explora Salto have?
Cool. Wine country, you've got all the options under the sun. There's great day trips from Santiago. Mostly we do heading west into the Casablanca and San Antonio valleys. And that is where you have some of the best white wine coming out of South America. Not the deep reds, not, the Carmenere that Chile is finally becoming known for. Check it out. It's great varietal, unknown and awesome. That and the Malbecs and the Cabernets, they're going to be further south. But you can also do a day trip. If you're a red wine drinker and you want to do a day trip from Santiago, you can go to Aconcagua, that valley, and you'll also see the mountain, which is great. That valley has some pretty good reds, but more on the Pinot Noir side. So you can do great day trips. If you want to do overnights, a little more intensive, you can also do nowadays with the thing. We're doing a lot of one nights, whether it's because they really want to be in wine country or not. It can be a nice pre or post. At Santa Rita Winery, which is a big winery, but they have an amazing 18th or early 1800s hacienda that's less than an hour from the airport. And it's a really good little hotel that's away from the main winery. So you can have a winery experience with one night. And, we're seeing folks who are starting to travel or planning trips for February and March, and they're on the more aggressive side and they want to stay out of the city. Well, then that's a perfect one nighter, whether it's just to stay out of the city or to stay at a wine country. If you're, this questioner was talking about Explora. So it's just an insanely awesome lodge and very premium, if you will. Then, if you want multi-night wine country and you want to be in similar sort of level, one of my favorite places that Tara and I spent our 10th anniversary was at the Apalta residence, which is La Postol is the vineyard. It takes all the hardware for South American wine. It's really good stuff. And they have 4 little private guest houses and then a main house. It's kind of hard to find on the internet. It's getting easier, but just try Apalta residence. You should be able to link there from La Postol Vineyard. 2 nights at the end, coming back from Patagonia and being active. And those areas, your question, Colchagua and where the deeper reds are and more traditional wine country, where you'll see more ACOM options and things, is going to be about a 3-hour drive. So really only worth it from a 2-night, 3-day perspective. You can take that afternoon flight back from Patagonia, the 2:30 on Latam. You're in Santiago Airport and you're out of there by 6. Your drive 3 hours. You're coming in at 9, which is a little late, but that's actually prime time for dinner in Chile. And Apalta residence is Relay Chateau. It's all about food and wine. I mean, it's the best food I've ever eaten. Dragon, the food and bev manager's a friend and just a savant at what he does. That's a really, really special place. You've also got Vinya Vic down there. That's 3.5 hours. It's a little further in the Mia way. Those would be good if you're, looking at Explora, but you're interested in wine after. Those would be a couple properties to look at. Or, like I say, staying closer to Santiago, you could do a one night, or be in Santiago because you love the city and you want to, eat at premium restaurants at night and things. Well, then going to wine country by day, a day trip to Valparaiso, those are great day trips from Santiago. And then Explora, there's 3 room categories. There's really only 2 though. There's the Salto Chico rooms. There's not that many of them. The property as a whole is about 40. And I think 12 of them are Salto Chico rooms. And then there's Cordillera Paine. I'm a guy in general, when I look at hotels, the first thing I look at is the standard room. A lot of times you're moving up in category, but the inflation of price relative to the value you're getting, the increase in quality, sometimes I find in standard city hotels and stuff is a little circumspect. If I'm going to Explora, I'm not staying in a Salto Chico room. Although you could argue it's worth it, but you don't get that view. The Explora is all about the view of the Paine Massif right in front of you in the lake. Salto Chico, you look adjacent towards a nice little waterfall, not the one I showed you before. They call the room Salto Chico, but that's not the actual water. You look at a nice little waterfall, you do see a little man-made structure there, kind of a walkway out to it, which I don't love. The sizes are the same, the amenities are the same, but the view is not the same. But there are many travelers who say, well, I'm going to be out all day. I'm going to be soaking up that view. I can also walk down, that walkway, which is awesome. And I want to save the money, and Explora is very expensive. Well, that's a very reasonable and good point. But the view is dramatically different. And for people going Salto Chico, I'm very upfront about that. Great questions. Thank you.
Let's see here. Yeah, I've been personally been trying to get back down there. I don't know when, after all this thing ends or whatever ends up happening, but I'm sure lots has changed. And
yeah, I mean,
when they take my family down there, hopefully.
I'm up and down as we all are. I'm sure doing this. I'm on a international travel business, so it's been pretty heartbreaking in a lot of ways. But when I have those days of silver linings, coming out of this, it's going to take a while. And people, I'm not in a position to encourage people to be planning for February, March, April. This has gone on a long time. I don't know, but people are, and if it's open, it's supposed to be open now, at least Chile officially, hopefully stays that way. Their cases are a lot lower than ours. They're in a lot better shape. Argentina's in better shape, but not quite as good.
Yeah.
But you're going to see places like, Torres del Paine, you don't quote get crowds on certain trails, of course, during high season, people funnel. But, crowds isn't so much the thing, but there are some of those, the French Valley and the base of the towers or mid-February on the W, you're seeing folks. And there's going to be a window there. So, and places like the Galapagos where we do a lot of work, I want to go. I want to go to the Galapagos now. The wildlife is always bonkers, and it's just going absolutely crazy. And there's nobody there. So there are some things, but of course there's a million concerns and things that are very valid. So, but I think next year, hopefully, we'll see some pros for those of us who hopefully are able to get out there.
Awesome. One last question that just came in. Probably best if they talk with you, but what is the average cost of a trip, including if excluding international airfare? Including if excluding international airfare. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, at the end of the day, cost is much like substance. we're highly specialized. We love a lot of different things. We work with a lot of different folks. We know our stuff. So depending, you know, what you're looking for, and that's why the skeleton process is beautiful, because you can outline things ballpark, okay, and then work forward. But in general, you know, we do private custom FITs and stuff. You know, if you're a group of two, it's, I would say, per person per day, and larger group size helps that, but it really runs a wide range. But it usually falls between 300 per person per day and 600-700 per person per day. Some of those lodges in Torres del Paine, those are more like a, you know, $800 to $1,100 per person per day. So that of course will affect things. But then if you go on a 2.5 week trip and you're in the Lakes District for 6 days and you're comfortable staying in, you know, 3-star plus, or even, you know, a little bit more, I mean, then that can help balance. It's hard to answer the question, not because I'm elusive, because there's a million ways to travel, you know, right? And we do, you know, we're pretty well known, and we do, you know, travel packages for folks. So we don't do 2-month backpacking trips where we're buying bus tickets for you and this and that. But I'd say, you know, $300 to $600 per person per day is an average. Then regional flights, it all depends how many you have. One single round trip, say to Punta Arenas, is usually between $200 and $400, seasonality, time of purchase, etc. And then international airfare, we have clients all over the world and all over the country. Some are more lucky, or you live in Dallas, you're coming straight from DFW, you don't have a connecting flight. You can see, you know, 600 to 900. Minneapolis, the average is more 800 to 1,300 round trip. But again, I've been on a bit of a hiatus in terms of actually booking new trips, and where airfare is going to stand coming out of this. Take what I said with a grain of salt. I don't know. You know.
Great answer. I don't see any other questions. I would just want to say personally, thank you for sharing all this information about your business. It definitely brings back a lot of memories for me personally. So awesome to see a bunch of great shots from places that I've personally been at. I know here at the Store of Midwest Mountaineering, we've helped a lot of people travel all over the world, and you guys have partnered with us with the Outdoor Adventure Expo for many, many years. So thank you again for that partnership. And let us know how we can help you, and we'll continue to move forward and amongst this craziness and try to come out at the end in a better place, hopefully.
Adon, my man, I owe you all the thanks. What you guys do to give us this platform, it's awesome. And the way you guys push through it, love it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. With that being said, then I think should we say goodnight?
All right. Thank you guys in the ethers who attended. I appreciate it. Feel free to reach out to us.